Welcome back to another episode of Black on Purpose 365. Black on Purpose is the purpose. Have a seat at the table. Today I'm gonna having a discussion. It's just gonna be a little bit more, should I say, a little bit more intimate, a little bit more, just a little bit more of an understanding about who I am. So I'm gonna talk about just have some dialogue, grown folks conversation, but really also explain basically the road to me becoming a man. There's some things in that I'll be discussing. My parents probably would have not liked to be disclosed, or they worked really hard to keep our privacy. So there probably will be some things that many of my family members may not even have even knew. And it's a part of it. It's okay. We grown. It's grown folks conversation now, so it's all good. But yeah, so I'll start out with just saying that my mother really held the house down and was a great example of how to lead. The thing, one of the things I'll say is that I had such a great relationship with my father, but things changed. It's the challenging part of being a black man. Is that things happen at different times, and sometimes it's things you can't change, and it skews the perspective on stuff. So with all of that being said, I'll go into just talking about how in my progress in becoming a man, it started out with my mother told me a story about how I guess we lived in the projects, or we were in the projects visiting. And my mother told me that I was walking out and running at an early age, probably before I was 1 year old or something like that. But I didn't really say a lot, although I would talk. I didn't say much. And she said that one time, the apartment that we were in, there was a flight of stairs, more than 20 stairs, solid concrete. She said that she opened the door, not realizing that I was close by the door, and I took off running, ran straight out the door, head first off those concrete stairs all the way down. She said that she just knew. She said, "Oh my God, my baby's dead." She couldn't. She said she was so afraid to see my head busted open or whatever. She couldn't walk down them stairs. So she asked her a neighbor or a friend to go and go down and see if I was alive. And she said that once her friend got down to the bottom of the stairs, she said I just got up. I started crying, but nothing crazy. I wasn't split open, nothing. I went on about my business. That's when the warrior started. Like she had something on her hands at that point. During that process of just growing, we actually moved around. So I realized that there was a lot of things that impacted my development, or impact just in general, that impacted me. So because we moved a lot, it wasn't really explained to me how to make friends. So I really didn't have very many friends, and I didn't talk much, which is another thing, which is kind of wild that this happened, was that because I wouldn't talk, I would just kind of look at people if I didn't like him. In school, they started testing me for hearing loss. They thought that I had hearing problems and thought that my parents was getting abused. That was crazy. So, in dealing with that, then also there was some problems like reading. I didn't have a problem with reading, but reading out loud, I didn't have the confidence then. And kids can be cruel. So there's also several other different examples of where I pretty much dodged the bullet, so to speak, as far as being alive. I can honestly say that anybody that doesn't believe that the Most High exists, I am a believer in the true. I can state many true statements about it. There was a time when we lived in the projects. For whatever reason, I was on the back of this riding lawnmower, and I fell off the riding lawnmower. And I guess my mother was watching, and she noticed that I wasn't on the back of it anymore. She started screaming and running. If she would have been 2 minutes later, because I was underneath, somehow I got underneath the lawnmower. The guy would have put the lawnmower blade down, and that would have been the end. No more of a Sean. Sean. Um, Yeah, so that was one example. There's so many different examples of just lessons that I had to learn, and one of the things that I learned was, so my father. My father always talked about he was a boxing Cleveland boxer. So all he talked about. So naturally, um, I learned how to box. He taught me how to box, but it was more. It wasn't really sparring. It was really more like you're gonna have to learn how to fight today. So the hands was nice. So, but on top of my hands being all right, I also really didn't have friends. So I started becoming mean. I went from being shy to being mean because I was getting joked and clowned a lot. From that, I started getting. I was considered the bad kid. So I didn't get a recess. I actually didn't. I went from the first grade all the way to the fifth grade, and I never had a recess. Years later, I just realized, just was talking to someone, and they explained to me that that probably had something to do with my development on why it took so long for me to have certain skills. Because I wasn't around doing the things that other kids do. Yeah, so that was one of those things that it certainly impacted how I processed information. But whatever. Uh, Moving right along. So then, my father was also going through different things because he was experiencing the challenges, which is what a lot of black men are still experiencing today, which is the jobs. He wanted to provide for his family. He wanted to be the man of the family and do different things, but he was just struggling. And it was a point in time where, he had to go away for a while. And when he went away, I think there was a point in time where, my mother couldn't really afford daycare. So basically it was like, you come home from school, come in the house, I already have your food made for you, eat, don't open the door for nobody, stay away from the stove. So at a young age, I learned I had to grow up fast. I learned, I mean, I had neighbors that would watch out, but it was still basically me listening to my mother's instructions and keeping our business between us, amongst us. Because I don't think at 5 years old, 6 years old, I was supposed to be by myself. But so I learned. I grew up, and then my father, when my father came back, he was he was trying. He was trying to make things happen, and but we was always together. He had me in probably some places I ain't need to be, but I was always protected. It was never any problems. People looked out. But from that, I seen a lot of stuff that I probably should not have seen at a young age. And because I was extremely smart, I picked all of that stuff up. So I knew all of these things that little 6-year old, 7-year old should have no idea about. If somebody would have actually took initiative or seen that, say some of the different people in my family, somebody like that, they'd have realized that this boy, although he bad, he he pick up information pretty quickly, retain stuff pretty good too. But yeah. So anyways, from that, my father wouldn't allow me to stay home. Fast forward a little bit, got a little bit older. And so there was a thing where I really just like music. Really, it wasn't, I really didn't, even though that I was pretty good in sports, I was pretty good because I had pretty good agility. I could move well, and I was pretty swift on my feet. And I had a competitive nature. So I could pretty much learn just about any sport, but I really didn't like sports. My thing was I was a musician. I liked music. I actually the I wanted to learn how to play the violin and the piano. Unfortunately, I lived out lived in the hood with nobody doing that, and on top of that, my mother really couldn't afford any kind of lessons. So it was like, well, all right. And then the other thing was that I could sing, but I didn't know that I could really sing. I had a friend that we used to just play around, and we would just remix a lot of different songs. So we would different TV shows. We would remix them and do say come up with your own little words and just do different things. And then also like look, I used to make instrumentals, so I would just sit in my room and just do either write music or whatever. And then my father would be like, you ain't gonna be up in this house all day running up my electricity. You need to get out. So then that's when I was forced to leave the house, and from that I'd go. It was basketball courts, close. Play football out in the streets. That was the thing. So it was that for a while. I had to do it. It wasn't even a choice, and I just happened to be pretty good at doing those things. Enough that coaches took interest in me. Um, Shout out to my good friend, the Courtney brothers, because of them I learned how to wrestle. They taught me how to wrestle when we moved next to them. They were some good friends too. But then from that, um gradually progressing and progressing. So from that, I started to play football in high school. I was pretty good. I was good enough that I definitely could have been a college player. But I wasn't interested in school, which was one of my issues. Was that there was a point in time where I started having the daddy issues. Even though my father was at the house, I still had the issues. I had issues with authorities and all that. And one of the things that I say now, sometimes when me and my mother are talking, is just like, I wish that I communicated more, but I wish that some of my family actually communicated a little bit more with me. Then I would have been able to, like, maybe I could have found out about, figured out what I wanted to do a lot sooner, versus trial and error on so much stuff. So then it was basically at that point, anyways, transitioning from that, it was, just seeing those things and understanding those things. Then, from that, I decided to go off into college. And when I went to college, I wasn't very prepared, but I've always been somebody that adapts really well. So first I got to college. Gradually, I got better at it, made a few mistakes, continued to get better. I met some really, really, really dope people too that even to this day, we still talk, and they were significant to my life. So when I say as far as the road to me becoming a man, this is when the road really, really, truly I started walking on that, driving on that path, on that road, because I met a friend of mine named Namal Bailey, and we were roommates, but then we ended up getting a house. When we got the house, I was never taught about paying any kind of utilities. I didn't know anything about that. So Namal was one of the guys in the house, and it was three of us. Yeah, three of us that we all split everything down the middle, but nobody was organizing what was due. So the mall would sit in the living room, and I walk in with my other roommate. We walk past, and we'd always be like, "What are you doing?" Whatever. Then after a while, it was like, my interest was peaked. Like, what you over there doing? And then he broke it down to me as far as splitting, figuring out which bill is due, which one you could pay. Like, he was the one that taught me how of the different things that I probably lacked from learning from my family, my mother, my, aunties, whoever, cousins. I learned that from them all. And I'll say this is that I was really good at not disclosing that I didn't know stuff. People did a lot of assuming that I just automatically knew how to do things. And it's a lot that I did not know. When I tell you I didn't know my going into college, I didn't even know my social security number. I didn't know how to tie a tie. I didn't know nothing about interviewing. It was so many things that I did not know. But I'm also someone that picks up information quick. So once I realized that I needed to know certain things, after one time, it was like, oh, got it. So nobody knew that I didn't know how to do certain stuff because I was just fast at picking up on it. So from that, the house we were in, our landlord basically said, he was a good dude too. He said, if long as you keep the house clean, or not, long as you keep the grass cut, keep the trash in the right area, pay the rent on time, you'll never have no problems with us. From that, I always remembered that. So instead of leaving it by chance, because again, we got a couple other guys in the house, I was like, nah, I'll make sure I do it. So I always got to cut the grass, make sure that the trash bags was in the right area. And anytime that the rent needed to be paid, me and the mall would always be available for the landlord. But after the mall graduated, it was on me. And I always made sure that it was taken care of, where I contact them like, hey, can you come and get the rent? So these were the next stages of, me becoming a man and understanding my role and my responsibilities. From that, I decided that it was time for me to go off, and my roommates basically all of my roommates that came to the house because it was three, then four, then one left, and then another came in and replaced them. All of the different roommates, they all graduated and went off and had careers. So at that point, it was like that reality hit me like, dang, I guess it might be time. Then another friend of mine that I learned a lot of valuable lessons from that came from was from Oregon, but had graduated from Toledo, came to Marshall and was a graduate assistant. And from that relationship, friendship, I really learned that um, there's a lot of things that didn't matter. And why am I not taking the opportunity that I have seriously? So it was like, okay, you work as a graduate assistant in Marshall. Why don't you have another job? Why don't you have a plan towards what you want to do in your life after this? You know, like what are you working towards? Like it was so many different things I wasn't even working towards. And then it was also I didn't even learn how to drive. I didn't have a license to legally drive until I was 27 years old. So it was all these different things that I really needed to be more intentional about. Once I got on the right track, though, then it was like, okay, I graduated from grad school, and it's like, all right, so now you need to get out here and really let's put some of these things to test that you think you got. And that's just when I tell you I was not ready. I went back to the DMV, came back to the DMV area. I had a friend of mine that was like, yeah, you could stay with me whenever. He ain't tell me that he had messed around and got married to a Colombian woman. And I ain't never met her. And needless to say, she ain't really like me. So I didn't stay there that long. Um, so I had a friend, practically family, that was living in Hampton, Virginia. So this is where I'm so grateful that he gave me the opportunity. But it was a lot of questions that I needed to ask and I did not ask. And I was in a situation I really didn't sign up for. So it was like he had a house. He was in the Navy and he had just completed his as a boot camp and whatever else he had to go through. So he bought a house in Hampton and he was like, yeah, you can come stay with me, get on your feet, get you a job. He was like, bro, you literally have a master's and I don't know anybody else that got that. You're gonna be living, you're gonna be doing all kind of stuff. And at first I'm like, man, whatever. But then after a while he gassed me up and then other people gassed me up and next thing you know, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have a butler. I'm gonna be traveling. I'm gonna be all over these places. I'm gonna be driving all kind of car. I'm gonna be doing all kind of stuff. And then I got there. One, it was him, his wife, his son. Then it was his mother. His mother had a boyfriend. Boyfriend was there a lot. Then he had a brother. On top of his brother, he had a cousin that was going to HU that didn't stay on campus, that stayed there. Then he had a sister that had five boys. So it was like I didn't never even had no idea that it would be like that. Again, I'm appreciative of the opportunity, appreciating that I had a place to lay my head, but it's just that wasn't it for me. And then I was also struggling mentally because I'm like, yo, I had my own place and had everything going, and now I don't have that, and I don't have no money, and I ain't got like I'm trying to figure out this career thing, and that ain't working right. So I was going through a lot, and then so I just left. I couldn't do it no more. I just left, but I didn't tell my mother that I was going through that, and she told me that she told me that I had a cousin that lived over in Newport News. So I called up my cousin and I explained to her what I had going on, that I'm a decent guy. I didn't we had This was the first time meeting. I'm like, I'm a decent guy. I'm just trying to get myself established. And I just need a place to lay my head till I can get on my feet. Get on my feet. So she was like, sure, baby, come on over. I went over to that joke. I had a resume. I put on my best suit. I was like, I had to prove it because I had nothing left. I had nothing else at this point. So she let me stay there, and I really appreciate my cousin Edna for allowing me to stay there and figure things out. So I was able to get a job, and then was making a little bit of money. And then from that, I ended up renting a room for about I was making like $8 an hour, but I and was renting a room for 500. And so from that, by the time I paid my rent, I ain't got no money. So and I did that for a year and a half. And then I got like so from doing that, it's like, yo, um I cannot keep commuting back and forth through the HRBT through them tunnels from Hampton to Virginia Beach every day. Tunnels go down from four, five, 6 lanes down to two, and then the traffic's so slow, and it's like this is killing me. It's like an hour and a half, 3 hours. It's like 15 miles away, 20 miles away, Hampton to Virginia Beach. But it feels like it's 4 hours every both ways, going and coming back. Like, yeah, late. So I decided I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna live in Virginia Beach. So I started emailing like through Craigslist, and I found a guy that was looking for a roommate. Shout out to my man Brian, because now he's like one of my good friends. Brian was in the Navy, and he went out to sea a lot. So he needed somebody he could trust to, hold down and keep everything taken care of, but wasn't doing too much. Talked to him. He was like, you know what, you seem cool. Come on down. You can stay at this place. You could, it was a 2 bedroom apartment, split everything. So basically, I had a 2 bedroom apartment, and he was in the military, so he wasn't there a lot, and he kept his side of the rent paid. But that first, I would say, there was a point in time when he was in and out, but when he was there, he didn't have like I literally would go to work, come home, and go upstairs to my bedroom, go to work, come home. I did that for over a year. So he told me years later, he was like, man, I was kind of worried. I thought you was like some weird stalker or crazy dude or something. But it was because I was so torn up inside, man. I was like going through a lot of different situations. Like, who I thought was my really good friend turned his back on me. On top of that, my grandmother had passed away. And then like the girl that I was supposed to kind of was dating, she wasn't into me. She was doing something else. Like, I had a lot of stuff going on. And I was trying to, living in the city, I didn't really know. So I'm like, what do I do? How do I figure this out? And so after a little past over a year or whatever, he asked me to come out with him one time. Like, we actually became cool, because he was like, man, you should come out. So I went out, and we actually had a good time. And I think it shocked him, because it was like, I'm actually a regular dude. I ain't corny. I'm out talking to women, dancing, partying, having a good time. And he like, man, you gotta loosen up, because you seem all right. And I'm like, yeah, man, but I'm in this grind. I got things that I gotta accomplish. I gotta achieve stuff. I got people in my family that are great, and I want to be great like them. So he's just like, I hear you, man. So from that, every now and then we'd hang out, but for the most part, I ain't really ain't do nothing. Then I started running. Once a guy Brian actually suggested one time, because we stayed right across the street from Mount Trashmore, which is a big park in Virginia Beach, and it's about 2.5 miles around, and then it has a lake in the middle, and it's a good environment. It's like a lot like people that aren't from that city, like because there's a lot of Navy people there. That's where they go, and they bring their kids, and people are out running, people sitting in the park and reading. So that energy felt so good to me that that's where I was going. Because I can honestly say, without Mount Trashmore, I probably wouldn't be here today, because I was at the point of being suicidal. So it was like I started running, and I'm running, and I'm getting in better shape. It just was allowing me to clear my mind, and things weren't so heavy. And then that's when my good friend, my man Dub, came down. He experienced something where his brother had died. Okay, I don't know exactly what happened, but he was fed up. He just couldn't. He didn't want to be around his people or nothing no more. So out of the blue, he called me. I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm in Virginia Beach." So at first, I'm kind of like, I ain't talked to this guy, man. I don't even know years. I don't even know what if he on the run or what. But I ended up meeting up with him. We talked for a minute, and then he told me a situation. So I said, "Look, bro, you can stay at my place. Don't bring no company or nothing, but you got a place to lay your head, get on your feet. Anything I can do, I'll help you." So he basically stayed at my spot for about a month or so, and he got a job. He got some money, saved up a little bit of money, and during that time, we would go and across the street and run at Mount Trashmore, and so it was like I felt like that I was a part of his progress. It also was helping me, because again, I didn't have really nobody that I was hanging out with or talking to, so that allowed me to kind of unlearn a lot of my bad habits that I had previously from like in college and stuff. So at this point, I'm just paying my bills, just doing the things that I'm supposed to do as an adult, as a grown man. And at that point, I got laid off from the current job that I was, well, not current, but the job that I was in then. And from that point, it was like, man, what am I gonna do now? And it was like that's when the scrambling and being confident and showing who you are and being willing to do whatever you got to do kicked in, and I made it work. So then I started working. I started contracting at Bank of America, and interesting about that was that I got sold to me as that it was an IT position, but it really wasn't that much of IT because we pretty much was just creating reports over the phone for users or helping them create reports. But during that time, I want to shout out a couple people that really helped me in my transition, which is a friend of mine named Janelle. I had a friend named April and a friend named Spencer. So we used to all go like to lunch and stuff together. They allowed me. They were all from VA, so they allowed me to learn things. I was able to pick their brains and kind of just see how they operated, how they maneuvered, and that helped me. It allowed me to to feel a little more comfortable, even though they felt it's funny years later because I've heard them kind of say that I seemed so mean and I seemed like that I just hated the world, but they didn't know the whole backstory. Nobody knew the whole backstory that I was battling with all these things internally. I just now I didn't realize I didn't mention it, but my father died. My father died. I seen my father die at at 19. I didn't really know how to process that. Like it was like, am I supposed to be the man of the house now? Or, like it was so many different questions that I really just went blank for a minute. So I still had all of this. I still had grieving to do that I really hadn't done yet, but I was ambitious and wanted a career. So it's like, and then I got it's just so many different things, so many different ways that my mind was just spinning. And I really didn't have people in my corner that was even checking for me. I probably went a good 7, 8 years without not one of my family members reaching out to my cell phone or calling me. Think about that. Like not one called me, not nobody checked on me. And it was like, so I felt like I developed like an anger towards everybody. I'm like, I don't care. I don't love nobody. Besides my mother, I'm gonna just go and grind because I don't care. I'm good. And I realized that at a certain point in time that was blocking my blessings. The animosity, the grief that I had towards my friend in Hampton, just people from my family, people from school, all of those different people that I was holding grudges with, it was stopping me and blocking me because there was a point in time when I started working at the Bank of America, and then it progressed into I was at the help desk. But being there for a minute, it was cool, but I didn't feel like I was progressing in my life. Like they were selling me the dream that you can go, you can do this and then go up to these different roles, but I never was going nowhere. I'm 6 years in and I still hadn't progressed. So I'm just like, I need something else. Like it just it didn't feel like I was going anywhere. From that, it was like, I started doing self evaluating, and I talked to a couple of different friends that was like recruiters, and they like, bro, like you, we don't know what you're making, but if you ain't at least seeing 150 to 200,000 with all the education and all the experience and stuff that you got, you selling yourself short. And once I started hearing that, it was like, hmm, oh yeah, now I got a whole different perspective of who I am, my value. It's like learning what my value is. So it was like, all right, well now I gotta make some moves. And then at that point, I started looking at, well, do I stay in Virginia Beach? Do I go to DC? Do I go to Atlanta? Or I had an opportunity to go out to Irvine, California, which is what because I did a internship for a network engineer position. Only thing about that was I had to pass a 3 hour test, which I didn't, so I didn't get that job. And that was also another thing that was beating at me because it was like, it hurt because I put a lot into that only for me to not progress into that role. So at that point, it was like, all right, I got to do something. So I decided to come back up to DC. And I tell you that I was not ready. I was not ready. I was not prepared. Thankfully, I learned fast, quick learner. And so what I ended up doing was I messed around and I started applying and applying, not interviewed for over a year. I probably interviewed more than 100 times, driving back and forth to DC from Virginia Beach 2 times in a week. It's 5 hours up, 5 hours back. I was so exhausted from doing it. I'm like, man, is it really worth this? Because I'm just not seeing no results. It was at the point of I just decided to stop interviewing. I just was like, man, I give up. It's not gonna happen. And as soon as I stopped interviewing, is exactly when Federal Credit Union found me. Funny thing about that is they told me that they have been trying to reach out to me and connect with me for over a year. So it was like, dang, but timing is everything, right? So I started working. Well, before I got to working there, I told them that I was already living in DC. Now, keeping in mind, I rolled the dice. I took a gamble because I'm giving up a job with job security that I had been in for 6 years for a job that was a 3 month contract. Top of that, I don't even have a place to live. I don't know where I'm gonna live. A week into where I'm about to start my job, the job, I still didn't have a place to live. Shout out to my man Earl, man. My rest in peace to my brother, man. Earl Douglas. I reached out to him, and he lived in Roslyn, which is right at the borderline of Georgetown, and he allowed me to move my stuff into his house for a minute, and then put my furniture and put my things in his basement. So I just gotta never forget that, man. He helped me in such a big way in that transition. So in that transition from that, I knew that working there and staying at his place, it was temporary. I was gonna have to get my own thing, own place or whatever. But I was stuck in a lease. I was stuck in a lease in Virginia Beach, so I'm still paying 1,400 down there. And I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I got a room. I was renting a room, and when I say this, I'm not saying it in any kind of way as far as that all Asian people are nasty. But these particular guys, when I tell you, I rented the room because I really didn't have no options for 900 a month. And when I tell you that the toilet was jet black, so nasty, the uh the floor in the whole apartment was black, black streaks all through the floor. And it had a smell in the place. It was like, oh my gosh. And it was a rain this thick all the way around the tub that was pube hairs. You couldn't even see in, like, it was a mirror over top of the sink. Couldn't even see it. There was so much dirt on it. I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this. But I had no other options. So I made it work. I cleaned the whole place myself. My first day moving in there, the first weekend I was in there, I cleaned the whole place with Lysol and everything. I said, I'm gonna make this work. So I did that. I did that for a while. I did that for 3 months. Then I got on my feet. And from that, I moved out of that place, and then I moved inside of the city over on 16th Street, northeast. No, northwest, 16 R and 16th Street. Yeah, northwest. So I did that for a while, and from that point, I feeling like, okay, I'm doing all right, man. I done made it to different levels, and I'm making more money than I had ever made. So I'm like, all right, I'm actually feeling accomplished. But there were some more things that happened. I mean, when I tell you I've always had to experience so much adversity, and this came out of different places, that is, I say all of these things just to give you an example of the things that I learned from my mother and my father, the challenges that I learned, the adversity, the people through college, all of those different things. I literally had to use all of those tools in order for me to continue going, to keep going, to keep succeeding and keep striving and trying to figure things out, because it's been so many different situations that I've had to go through that nobody's prepared me for, you know? And that's why I say this is the road. I'm gonna tell you about the road that I traveled on to becoming a man. For now, that's chapter one, or part one, I'll say. I would like for you all to, let me know what y'all think so far. Let me know, give me a like, or follow. Let me know that that you're ready for part two, because I could tell you it's a whole lot more I left out, because what I did is I stopped at 2015. At that point, I had started a business, real estate business. There was a point where I had to experience some deaths. There was some situations that happened with moving. It was a point of dealing with a merger. It was the things that happened during COVID. Like when I tell you, it's been so many things that have allowed me to confidently say I've been blessed, alhamdulillah, and I've been able to overcome the adversity to becoming a man. So for now, I'll just say this has been a great episode. I appreciate everyone that pulled up a seat. This is Black on Purpose 365. Black on Purpose is the purpose. Until we until we regain this conversation or until we continue. It's been a pleasure.